Hi, and welcome back to the Positive Prepper. So this is video number 2 that I said I would get out this week. And for this video, I want to talk about two things, social strain and martial law. So right now we have kind of a tug of war going between the government, the states, and individuals. We don't obviously live in the same world that we used to. The government, certain tentacles of it, seem to want to destroy, declare, and then confiscate, and that is in more ways than one. There's a lot of talk out there that some of these places affected by natural disasters are created by certain agencies to destroy that area, and then they declare that, well, we can no longer have insurance, or we can no longer have buildings built there, and then they come in and they confiscate that land. Some of which I probably have no doubt is being sold to probably other countries or other entities that have no desire to help the American people. So right or wrong, people are rising up. I mean, we've seen people going against ICE agents and police officers. What they believe in, they're rising up, and they're being pretty open about it. And unfortunately, we have a part of the government that is supporting that, calling for it, in a lot of verbal ways, and they don't seem to care about the lives of those officers or the American people, the innocent families. They have no care about those people getting hurt, and most often they side with the illegal aliens or the criminals rather than the law-abiding citizens. Now, is that enough to make people stand up and fight against that? So far, no. Churches, sadly, very sadly, have been completely silent. They've been silent on the trans issue. They've been silent on men and women's sports. They've been silent on all of these things that the Bible says should not be happening, but the churches are scared. To me, that says that they are not guided by God, that they have not put on the armor of God, that they are just sheep, and they don't want to rock the boat. And sadly, that's not what should be happening, especially from the churches. So for, again, the theme with these videos is the rest of 2025, right? We've made it halfway through. So the rest of 2025, there could be further clashes between groups of people, which we all know are sponsored by certain multi-bajillionaires that tend to lean that direction. But unless something really, really drastic happens, I don't see that getting any worse. However, I will say, and I've said it before, that there is a bounty, a very large bounty on someone's head. And that, I believe that he will continue to be a target. And if anyone succeeds in that, that's when I think that there will be a complete possible civil war, civil unrest. I don't think that that's going to be very pretty. So we have to pray that, that does not happen. But you have to remember that with any conflict, you need to ask yourself about the likelihood of anything happening, especially in your specific area. how imminent you think that it might happen, and then the impact that it would have specifically on you, your group, your family, your specific area. In my area of Wisconsin, for example, we're a bunch of small towns. I don't see anything major as far as social conflict goes. We're going to have our little upticks. We always do. But we're like an hour and a half from any major city. So I don't see anything like that affecting us here. Again, unless something dramatic were to happen. That could change, even in your small towns. People are upset because we seem to be getting garbage thrown at us when it comes to the truth about the JFK files. We still don't have any answers regarding the shooters of the assassination attempts. And, the whole Epstein client list, that's just been a fiasco. Oh, I have thousands of documents on my desk, and then, a lot of that had already been released before, and so it didn't have any effect. There was nothing new for them to show. And then if there's no criminality there, then why is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail? Like, what? The whole thing has just been a fiasco as far as the Trump administration goes. And now, of course, he's blowing that off, and that's upsetting people because that was one of the things he ran on. Okay, it's one of those conspiracy theories that, once again, will be proven true. So none of anything coming out about any of that has any value. But is this going to be enough to get people all agitated and up in arms? Like I said, no, unless something drastic happens. The mayoral race for New York City right now is causing a stir. There is a huge gap between who's running on the left and who's running on the right. And I hate to say it, but if that guy on the right, and I can't remember his name offhand, but I mean, you're basically talking, you will have a communist New York. Like, you can't even argue that with what he's been saying. So with all of this being said, however, if the grid goes down or there's some kind of a military open war, because in some regards we kind of are at war already, but unless something really drastic happens, I just don't see that becoming more of an issue. But it's always a possibility, which is why we prep, right? So that being said, if something major should happen, there's always a threat of martial law. So this is the prepping part of this video. So I'm going to give you 5 things that you should do if martial law ever came to your area. And this could also be applied just in, if there was a lockdown, like if there was a new pandemic or something like that. You could apply these 5 things to that as well. So the first thing you need to do is you would need to verify the martial law from several different sources, and then try to define what the affected area is. So just because somebody says that there's martial law doesn't mean that it's real. Just because somebody says it on Facebook or on the internet, on YouTube, even in an article, you need to verify it through multiple sources, not just somebody saying it, okay? Even if they look like they're legitimate. Verify it with several different legitimate sources, and then define what the affected area is. Oftentimes, martial law only affects a certain area. So verify whether or not your specific area where you specifically live is affected by that. And then number 2, find out what the actual rules are. What are the actual restrictions? So martial law could be defined differently depending on why it was called for in the first place. So find out what the restrictions actually are. Does that mean you can move about from the hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then you have to go into lockdown? Does it mean that you need a pass to go to work? What does that look like? And again, get it verified through real sources. Number 3, use your alternative comms to talk about the situation. Find out what the movements are of the people that are overseeing the lockdown or the martial law, and then what your next steps would be. You need to keep these communications very short and to the point, because you don't know who's going to be listening in on that. But communicate with other people that you know, to keep abreast of the situation. Find out what movements are happening, whether it's military or whatever, and then what your next steps might look like. Okay? Number 4, you need to hide your resources, your boomsticks, your freedom seeds. And that includes your food, your valuables, your alternative comms. You need to keep all of that stuff out of sight as best you can. And that includes yourself. If martial law has been declared in your area, the best thing to do is just stay out of sight. Stay out of anyone's view. Okay? Don't make yourself a target. And then with your resources, don't make anything easy to take. Okay? Hide it. Hide it all. Okay? And then the last thing is watch what's going on. Now, I know I just said, keep yourself hidden. So you're going to have to do this covertly if you can. Watch the ones that are in charge. Watch their routine, their movements. Start taking notes. What are they doing from 8 to noon? What are they doing from noon to 3? What are they doing from 3 to 5, right? Get their routines down. Watch how they interact with the public. Watch for abuses of power. Are they just going door to door and taking whatever they want, or is there a rhyme and reason to it? Okay? If things change for better or for worse, you will be able to see that and then adjust your own actions accordingly. But you have to pay attention to what their movements are and what their routines are and how they're interacting with other people. Okay? So those are five things that I can tell you that you should probably do just in case, we're prepping in possibilities. Martial law were to be declared, or I think even another lockdown of some kind. I think you can apply that to both, because we don't know the overreach or the tactics that will be used, especially now during times like that. So keep those words in mind. Thanks for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Put comments in the comment section below. I love having a dialogue going on about maybe there's some other things you can think of that could be done during a lockdown or martial law, or whether you think that is imminent, right? But in the meantime, stay safe, stay aware, and God bless.